Looked out to see the sun.
Please welcome to the stage our special guest and lunchtime keynote speaker, Rob Thomas, Senior Vice President, Software and Chief Commercial Officer for IBM.
There's no place in this world I'd rather be without you.
Good afternoon. I hope everybody's doing well. How are we doing? All right. I'm going to interrupt your lunch and hopefully share a few ideas that could be useful. I think we sit here at a very unique time in technology, and based on the association here, I think everybody here is interested, curious about technology, and I think of this moment as the opportunity of a lifetime. Why do I say that? Technology has become more accessible than ever before. And each of you in your roles, you have a chance to bring AI into your business in a way that's never been done before. But the question is, who's going to act? I talk to a lot of CEOs around the world, and everybody's intrigued by this topic, but they're also not really sure of what to do. Let me give you a sense for what is possible now. Imagine you're sitting at your desk and you just start giving orders. Open a purchase order. Tell me my sales forecast. Order new parts. List new job requisitions. Imagine if your work was as easy as a natural language command line. This is possible today. We just announced this week, we are now automating 94% of the HR tasks in IBM through that exact type of interface. Employees used to go to an HR professional. 94% of the time now, they just go to the search bar and they can resolve their issue. Does that mean HR is not important? Of course not. But our HR team can now focus on the more complex tasks, and the whole company becomes more productive. This is technology that's available for anybody today, but it's a combination of imagination, technical expertise, and I would say a willingness to really think about how you put AI to work in your company. Let's look at adoption. Since 2017, adoption of AI has more than doubled. And I think some people look at this, they say, well, maybe that's not my industry, or maybe that's not my function, or maybe that's not my area. It is. This is a global survey, all industries. So if you're not doing it, the competition is. And that's what I want to encourage today. And I've got some great guest speakers in a moment to give you a sense for this can be done now if we have the will to act. I like to think of it as we've gone from a world where AI was an interesting topic. People thought of it as, well, I've got my core business to run, and then in addition to that, I'll do some AI projects. That's what I mean by plus AI. We've gone from that to a world of AI first. And I think this is going to happen very fast, meaning in the next 2 to 3 years, if you have not made your move, somebody else will have. And the companies that are AI first in everything that they do, those will be the winners for the next decade. So this is going to happen quickly, but think of this mostly as an opportunity if we all step into this moment. Let's talk about what's happened in the last 4 or 5 months on AI, because I think sometimes this gets a little bit misunderstood. Everybody here is aware of ChatGPT, I think. And to their credit, they brought a lot of interest to the topic of AI. How did they do that? They built and trained a large language model and have largely targeted consumer applications thus far, enterprise search, Probably the conversation that your kids have had trying to convince ChatGPT to do their homework. A lot of different interesting use cases. That is a large language model. The bigger concept here is a foundation model. And if you look back in history, the term foundation model came out of Stanford. And that was the original body of work around how is AI going to scale to serve the world in a positive way. What's the difference between data science, machine learning, deep learning, and foundational models? It's pretty simple. The world of data science and machine learning and deep learning, it was really hard. I know a number of people in the audience. You guys have tried this work, so you've seen it yourself. It required a massive amount of training, which required a lot of labeling of data in advance. That's why the results for those projects, some were good, some were not so good. What's different with foundational models is a revolutionary technology called transformers that is able to learn from unlabeled data. So the biggest thing that's happened in the last 6 months, what's really happened over a few years, but has come to the forefront in the public, is this notion of foundation models, which enables you to build models, train models, and do it on unlabeled data. A large language model is one type of a foundation model. So don't be confused that this is all about large language, this is all about consumer use cases. There is a bigger concept here, which is foundational models. Then you go one step further. You'll hear this term generative AI. Generative AI is about anything that creates new content. So it's not just about large language models. This is about foundational models. The question is, what are the foundational models that are relevant to all of us who are largely in a business context, not a consumer context? So let me give you a sense of what's possible if you think about data when it comes to foundational models. And you could draw this kind of picture for your own organization. What are the kinds of data that are available that could inform a foundational model in your business? Sensor data, could be chemistry and materials, depending on the industry that you're in, geospatial, IT data, business data, images. There are massive amounts of different types of data that you could bring to foundational models in your business. And I think, back to my comment on opportunity of a lifetime, this is where the opportunity of a lifetime will emerge. It will be the companies that figure out the data that should inform how they're going to build models in their company. So let's link the concepts. We talked about what a large language model is, what a foundational model is. It's kind of all in this concept of generative AI. What does that mean for business? We've seen 4 dominant use cases emerge in the last, I'll call it 18 months, as companies around the world have started to think about how do I train foundational models and use that to deliver an outcome in my business. Number one is companies are using large language models. I gave you the example at the start where we've automated 94% of the HR tasks in IBM. At the core, that is a large language model. Next is IT automation. For those of you that work in complex IT environments, think about the amount of effort required to keep systems up and running. When there's an issue, how do you address the issue? What is your mean time to resolution if you're dealing with an issue? Today, there's IT automation models that can take care of a lot of that work, and I'll give you some examples of that in a moment. Third is digital labor. This is where large language models meets white-collar clerical work. And I think this will be one of the most disruptive opportunities over the next few years, which is the automation of repetitive tasks. And that is coming to the white-collar world because AI can do the work that is very repetitive in nature, which frees up time, capacity, productivity to focus employees on other tasks. And then fourthly is cybersecurity. So if you only remember one thing from this, I would think about the prevalence of technology for foundational models today, and I would think about one of these 4 use cases. Taking on 4 at once is probably too much for anybody, but one of these put to work in your company will have a profound impact and will build the credibility and the energy to keep the projects going. The other concept, so once you get to, all right, I want to go implement this. If you're convinced that, hey, maybe we should do something, the question then becomes, how are you going to do this? I believe that AI is going to be both multi-model, meaning you're going to use models from all over the world, all different providers, and multi-cloud. Because if you think back to that picture I had around the data, your data is probably in multiple places, on public clouds, on private clouds. There's an opportunity now. You can build your own models. The technology is available. You can use IBM models. We've focused in the 4 areas that I talked about before, where we've built foundational models that are pre-trained based on our data, that you can then augment with your data. Or you can use IBM models. You can use open source models. You can use models from somebody else. The point is, you don't need to choose. The world is going to be multi-model. So I think you have to think about what are the use cases that you want to go after, and then what is the best way to get access to models that you can quickly train and get up and running. And then eventually they will deploy on any cloud. This is the journey that I think about. And I call it the modern day AI ladder, because we used a term a few years ago called the AI ladder, which was really about how do you make your data ready for AI. But what's changed now with things like transformers that I spoke about is the data work, it's not easy, but it's become a little easier. So think of that as the first rung on the ladder, which is how do you collect, organize, understand, and grow data as an asset. And I think any company that's in the plus AI mindset is probably doing that right now, because they know they need to do AI at some point. Next step is, can you add AI to your existing applications? That's very accessible. Then, can you start to automate some of your workflows? What was done by a human before, can it be more accurate, more precise, done more quickly through automation? Then you get to the point was, do I even need that workflow? Can I completely replace it? And then lastly, what I would really define as an AI-first mentality is AI just does the work, which goes back to that graphic I gave you at the start where you're just sitting in front of your computer asking for something to get done, and it gets done. This is possible today. So why did I talk about any cloud? You have applications, you have data, some is in the cloud, some is in private cloud. We started talking about this term hybrid cloud back in 2020, and it was our belief that everybody is going to run technology and data and applications on multiple clouds, public and private. So that's the base. Next is you need to think about what will my strategy be for an AI and data platform. And the things that I've described today around foundational models, how you store data, how you do governance of AI, again, that data is accessible today, but you need to start to make some choices. Who do I partner with? Probably multiple partners, as I said. And then you can bring this to life through different products on top. These are some of the ones that we've been building. The video that you saw at the start is a product called Watson Orchestrate, which basically takes the foundational model for digital labor, and then you can train the model based on your data, your business process, and then Watson Orchestrate becomes your automation platform. It does the work for you by you just asking it what to do. Let me give you some examples. I think Bradesco is a great one. Bradesco is now automating the answers to nearly 300,000 calls per month. It's completely changed everything about their call center strategy. They still have call center employees because their automation rate is high 80s, if I recall. So they need customer service representatives to deal with the harder problems, but being able to automate 80% plus of the calls that come in and do it at 95% accuracy is an incredible feat. And this is just a proof of scale. 300,000 calls a month. Bradesco is one of the largest banks in Brazil, serves a huge population. It gives you a sense that the technology is ready if you think about the scalability. Next one I love is J.B. Hunt in transportation. I talked about this use case around IT automation. They are now able to save 700 hours a year of IT tuning and resource optimization because they're working with a foundational model that's based on IT automation that they've trained based on their own systems. Etihad, I think, is a great example of modernization, automating API connectivity as applications communicate. So they can move some applications to public cloud, but have that communicating with applications that they run on their private cloud. My reasons for sharing these examples is the foundational model technology, yes, it's relatively new. And we have some big announcements next week in terms of what we're going to be doing with our AI and data platform. But the core building blocks, these have been around for, I would say, a couple years now. And there are some fast movers who have kind of jumped on this. But I think this opportunity is available to everybody. I'd love for you to hear from a couple clients that IBM works with, both part of the city of Atlanta. So I'd love to welcome out Jason Sankey, who's the CIO for City of Atlanta, and Remy Santel, who's the Commissioner in the Department of Enterprise Asset Management. Jason and Remy. Appreciate you guys taking time to talk for a few minutes.
Thank you for being here.
Jason, start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do for the City of Atlanta?
So I am the Chief Information Officer for the City of Atlanta. I've been the CIO for the past 2 years in the great city of Atlanta. We are very busy. I oversee technology for, that's right.
You got some fans here, Jason.
That's right. Oversee technology for our 25 departments, the airport, watershed, public safety, you name it.
And you were state of Ohio before, if I recall.
That is correct. I was CIO for the state of Ohio.
So you know what you're doing. You've been doing this stuff for a while.
A little longer than I'd like to admit.
Great. And Remy, how about you?
My name is again Remy Santil. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management here for the great city of Atlanta as well. I am over the assets relative to the fire stations, police precincts, city hall, municipal court, all the vertical buildings relative to the city of Atlanta.
Wonderful. You guys have an incredible opportunity in front of you, I think, to transform how the city operates. And you've kind of both done this in some of your past roles I've seen, which I think is really exciting. IBM loves the city of Atlanta. I actually started with IBM in the city of Atlanta. We've done a lot of work with the Falcons and other places. And we're always thinking about how do we keep moving the ball forward in terms of how cities operate and run. Now, Remy, you had some experience at MARTA and did a lot of work there leveraging AI, asset management. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was really interesting relative to my experience at MARTA. That's where I was before coming here with the city of Atlanta. And we had a tunnel ventilation system that was actually maintained by 3 different maintenance groups. So it made it very difficult to find out to make sure the system as a whole was operating. So we leveraged and created a proof of concept relative to using AI to make sure that we can do predictive maintenance to make sure that the system was operating. And we developed a proof of concept that worked out pretty well.
Excellent. So I think if I recall, you guys were using Maximo, and inside that there's a model around predictive maintenance.
Yes.
What kind of insights does that give you? Like how should this group think about predictive maintenance? Why does that even matter?
Well, when it comes to asset management, the role in asset management is really evolving very quickly. And data is king. Without that data, that hardcore data relative to making sure that the assets are machine learning, the whole aspect of that predictability of it is really key. And all the things with IoT and making sure those aspects are in the buildings, making sure that we're having a smart infrastructure, building infrastructure, and that's what we're trying to implement here in the city of Atlanta.
Excellent. So you've had this experience, asset management, predictive maintenance, putting AI into the world. What are you going to do with that as you think about your current role?
Well, one of the mayor's strategic goals is to build a city of the future, and that's what we're trying to do. Through being
Are you taking requests from the audience today on City of the Future?
City of the Future. Well, that's what we are. We do things a little differently here in Atlanta, so we want to be really avant-garde on that aspect because you don't find too many municipalities doing what we're doing here, and that's what makes being part of the City of Atlanta quite unique relative to that. But again, we're just trying to be a data-driven, being able to use innovation to really move the ball forward relative to that, and using the partnership with IBM has been instrumental in doing so.
Excellent. All right, Jason, let's go to you. So you take on the CIO role. Is AI going to play a role? Too soon to say? How are you thinking about this? Or you've already done it?
So most definitely it plays a role. So when you think about AI and how you do business, you really have to think about the customer lens. And I think about, as an example in my personal life, I think I've been to the bank, a physical bank, maybe once in the past 2 years, right? Because everything is available on my cellular device, my smartphone. Even the predictability of the market. I don't speak to a broker anymore. I do my own research because all of the technology exists. We also need to have those same solutions for our constituents, for our businesses, for our citizens, where when they want to deal with the city of Atlanta, what they would do is have technology to, let's say they wanted to submit a permit. And through predictive analytics, we should be able to tell them how long it will take in order for that permit to be completed based on the different factors that a questionnaire would ask.
Excellent. So you got a room of practitioners. I think everybody here has technology somewhere in their role. How do you recommend people get started on these projects? Because you're thinking of something as ambitious as City of the Future. How do we change, talked about all the stakeholders that you serve. How do you tackle something that big? How would you approach a problem?
Well, we're an ITIL framework organization, and one thing I like about ITIL, it says start where you are. So recognize where you are first. But then it really involves process. So when you think about AI, if you're not using RPA or machine learning internally, not even externally yet, then you need to ask yourself why. Because you need to create efficiencies internally, because what is the challenge for probably everyone in here is how do we do more with less, right? So how do we make our processes more efficient? How do we deliver value through automation? And then I would say, after you work on the process, look at the data, right? Because everything that we do within the city has some type of data set. We're a data-rich city. So being able to create data-driven outcomes, being able to create better environments. If you think about it, the fires seem to be an issue in Metro Atlanta. I hear about fires at least, once a week, if not more. There's data behind that. So is there a way to put AI and predictive analytics to determine, is there a certain situation, environment that is driving fires in certain communities?
Love it. I like to use this phrase, there's no AI without IA, meaning information architecture, which kind of comes back to your data point. So Remy, let me bring this back to you. Where does data fit in your strategy as you think through going after the asset management problem and others?
Yeah, again, data is king. Having that data enables us to be, again, what Jason was saying, relative to being predictable, and being able to have that aspect of understanding how your buildings are operating, and again, trying to build that city for the future. So having all those capabilities in hand, an individual, we're not looking for AI to necessarily replace people, but what it is it's very difficult nowadays to have that skilled labor. So with that data and that data being actionable and using it to what we want it to do, I think that's one of the major keys in what we're trying to do. So making sure we have actionable data and being able to manipulate that to a way to where we want to do is, again, just benefiting the constituents of the city of Atlanta.
I like that term, actionable data. So Jason, what does that mean for you? How do you get data to the point that it's actionable? Is it data quality, data collection? Like, how do you think about this?
It starts with quality, it starts with data normalization, it starts with making sure that you have a central repository of data, whether that's a data lake or you have integrations into whatever you're utilizing as a platform. But it all starts with quality data, because if you generate outcomes based on false data, you're generating false outcomes. So quality is very important. And then technology on top of that is important, because when you think about all of the data points that we have as a city, it could be overwhelming. So what do we do with that data? And I think through good partnerships like with IBM, having consultative services to talk through our real life examples, real life data to create real outcomes.
Excellent. Any parting words of advice for you guys? We've got a whole room that's thinking about what do I do next based on this discussion. Parting words of advice, Remy?
Well, just within your organization, just see how AI can fill the gap and how you can use it as a repertoire as part of your management. If you're deficiency relative to skilled labor, things of that nature, just try to identify the key points where you can utilize AI to better fit your organization.
Great. Jason?
We're really leaning into a concept, I don't know if anybody knows 4DX or 4 Disciplines of Execution, but it really prioritizes the wildly important goals for an organization, and everything else is whirlwind, but you have to get the whirlwind done. My advice would be AI should be part of your whirlwind or your wildly important goal, but it can't sit on the sideline and you say, well, at some point we really want to focus on AI, just not today. Because if you go with that strategy, today will never come.
And it's here now, right?
Well said. All right. Thank you both. Jason Sankey, Raymond Santel. Thank you both. Thank you. I think that's some great advice from both Jason and Remy, and it doesn't surprise me. I think everybody I talk to about AI, inevitably the discussion turns to data, and we should never lose sight of the fact that the AI we build is only going to be as good as the data that we have to feed it. I want to come back to this concept I teed up at the start. We all sit here at a moment. You got to either decide, is your business going to be plus AI, something that we're going to do when we can get around to it, or are you going to be AI first? I think this is the opportunity that sits in front of all of us. Think about this even from your employee's perspective. AI is not going to replace managers, but the managers that use AI will replace the managers that do not. And you can see that happening right now around the world. So there is a chance here, an opportunity to go on offense if we move now. My challenge to you, or my question to you, would be, what are we waiting for? The best thing about ChatGPT is it's created curiosity. It's created interest. So we all have a unique moment in time where every board, every senior executive team wants to know, what are we going to do in AI? Hopefully I've given you a few things that you can take into those discussions, because this is the time to have that discussion. We think of this with a very long-term view. On the right side here is kind of our view of how does AI play out over the next decade. And the thing that's really going to change the rate and pace, which is not too far away, is when AI starts to build the AI. Next week we'll be launching something called Watson Code Assistant, which is basically anybody that's writing code, the AI will help you write the next lines of code. This is just the beginning. That's one example of AI that's creating AI, but there will be more to come. I think now is the time for all of us. It is the opportunity of a lifetime.